So my mentor shares, you are today where your thoughts have brought you, and you will be tomorrow where your thoughts take you. So we want to develop that mindset and know that our thinking and the quality of our thinking is really determining where we're going. And if we really want to have different results, it starts with understanding, making the shift at the level of where results start in the beginning. So with that, along those same lines, just as you know, the beauty is that we can rewire the brain. And the research has shown in the last years that we have an ability to rewire our brain to better serve us. So that's what we're talking about today, is the fact that we don't need to stay stuck in our old patterns. Again, we're going to be what I call the director of our own ship. We get to wire our brains in the direction that we want to go. So we're going to unpack that. The great discovery was that neurons that fire together wire together. So we want to pay attention. This last phrase at the bottom, you might want to really note that and write it down for yourself. What we put our attention, or where we put our attention, energy flows. Or another way, where our attention goes, energy flows. And we know this, but when we are more aware of it, we want to really be directing our thoughts to what we want and have clarity with that. So as we then, I primed your brain to kind of lead into this piece of how are we going to develop that transition mindset? You might be far along with that process. You might be in a place where it doesn't feel really good right now. So I'm going to have you take a moment here. One of the things in taking in information, we really learn best in chunks, and we need our brain to recuperate for a moment. So I'm going to have you take a little pause here and take a deep breath. And as we move into the next section, breathing in through the nose on 4, hold, and slowly exhale. And recalibrate again, as we talked about at the beginning. Pay attention to what might be coming in that's going to serve you. So as we're looking at mindset, I love this. We want to make a shift from actually being in that place of having a set mind, a mindset, to step into the possibility. I'm inviting you in all of this to open up to the possibility of the fact that we can design our mindset. We can move into really designing a transition mindset, as I shared earlier, to move to a higher level of attitudes and beliefs and perceptions by designing it that's going to match where you want to go. So we're going to talk about how are we directing our mind. We want to have the end game defined so that we can up level and design these attitudes that are going to match where we want to go. So we're talking about shifting to a higher mindset. And as you do that, you recognize that you have confidence and you have more power in this whole job search process than you realize. As I said before, you have all the tactical things and you have lots of support that way. But if we don't have our mindset directing the show and encouraging you with your will to follow through on these things and trust that you're on the right path and staying at a more positive kind of directing level, you're missing out on the power of moving forward. So we're learning about taking on, I'm going to share some perspectives and mindsets that can support this whole transition time. So the growth mindset, coming into this time that I'm growing, when you have that attitude that I'm going to be building new skills, I'm going to try, challenging things, I'm going to learn from failure, that you're actually claiming and understanding. That's a whole nother, different lesson about the power of failure, that it is in the service of us moving more quickly and we learn from it, that we're going to be adjusting and trying new strategies, that this is such an important piece to perspective to take on. So I invite you to think about, this is a time of growth. I am growing right now. I've heard this great phrase and it's pretty potent. We're either growing or we're dying. we're either growing or we're dying. Meaning, if we're not growing, we're staying in that set mindset. And what can happen is we can actually kind of drop down a few notches as well. So if we can role model ourselves as part of nature, we're ever aspiring to grow. And if you can take that mindset during this time, maybe, it wasn't optional for me being laid off or, kind of being forced into where I am in this process of job search. But if you can embrace it and say, what if this were the best thing that could have happened to me? I actually was presenting in another group last week, similar to this. And a woman shared at the end that, and got teary and said, my boss kind of held on to me for an extra month and that was great. And then he finally let me go. And in that moment, as that happened, she realized, that was the best thing that could have happened to me. Because now she's on a different path of really going in the place that she really would love. So it's perspective. So if you think of it as a growth path, you are more likely to stick with things longer, perform better, and enjoy what you're doing more when you believe that your skills, when you're in the growth mindset, you're more likely to stay with it as opposed to thinking that your skills are fixed. So the growth perspective, growth mindset helps you focus on what is in your control and reduces the fear of being stuck in a current state. It helps you to be more proactive instead of reactive. This is such an important phrase here. We're going to talk about that in terms of, what happens in the brain. We get triggered. Something happens. I got rejected. You're not getting phone calls back for, potential interviews. And the lower level brain wants to just get all angry and I can't believe this is happening. And we get into the reactive, kind of mode, as opposed to being more proactive in your process, or what I call responding instead of reacting. That I could put a pause on the reactive mode and go, wait a minute, what is a better way of responding to this situation? I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. But the growth mindset, you're moving ahead and you're willing to and open to building in the growth.